Interactive virtual presentation, interactive virtual event, interactive webinar. We've all heard it. I don't care if you're a speaker, you're an event organizer, crap, even if you've attended a webinar, a virtual event, a virtual learning, everyone is pitching this concept of it's going to be very interactive. We're going to be fully engaged and it's going to be interactive, back and forth. And here's the thing. Interactive shouldn't be the goal. And honestly, interactive is only one type of virtual conversation, virtual event, virtual presentation. And what I mean by that is, here's the thing. Telling people that, hey, I want you to be, this virtual event is going to be interactive, isn't really focused on the goals that we're trying to achieve. The thing I'm going to tell you the question that I've fired back every single time when someone says, Brian, we're hoping you're going to, configure a very interactive presentation today. The thing I question back is to say, do you want interaction? Like, is your audience prepared and going to dedicate the time and their education of interaction for this event? Or do you want me to maintain the audience's attention? Now, I tweeted this out not too recently, and someone fired back immediately. I can't remember who it was. If I do remember, I'll make sure to drop it up here on the screen. But they said, Brian, yeah, the only way you can maintain the audience's attention is through interaction. And I'm going to say wrong. Because here's the thing. As a presenter, as a virtual keynote speaker, I've done 48 of these this year. I've done 3,500 live streams. If you're building a presentation to be interactive, which means the content is going to be, going back and forth, kind of chopped up. You're going to be using the Q&A, the chat. You're going to use all those things. You have to build a presentation specifically for that. Funny enough, almost everyone, when we're talking about webinars and virtual events, especially for the free ones, which a lot of them are, they're like, oh, don't worry. Give us the same presentation you do on stage, just make it interactive. It's like, where's the interactive button? Is there an interactive button like on my board or something that I can, that doesn't exist. And so here's what we have to think about, right? What does interaction mean? How are we going to make interaction part of this event? And is interaction what we want? Because here's the thing. I know for some people this is probably making them a little nervous seeing the monopod over here. But I can use the 5 cameras that I have set up here in my office, production of one, to provide a very, change different angles. We can change the intimacy, the empathy of that, emotional connection with the audience. And I can maintain their attention without having them to be active in the chat or using what they're saying to impact the presentation itself. The other thing that I find very interesting on this concept is that we're hearing lots of things like this is going to be a very interactive online event, and yet everything's pre-recorded. And now I will say I've done some interactive sessions where I knew that I was going to be pre-recorded, and what I did was I knew I would be in the chat answering and engaging during my recorded session. And so in my recording, I actually was like, okay, you're going to see me in the chat. I'm going to put up a question in the chat. And based on whatever your answers are, I'm going to give you guys some direction from this part of the presentation. But I don't think that's what they're looking for. And so the reason I think that when someone says, hey, not someone, when most people say, hey, I want an interactive presentation, what they're really saying is, we don't want it to suck. We don't want it to be boring. We don't want it to be robotic talking head. And I think we've learned this the hard way, right? Like, a great YouTuber is not often a great speaker. A great speaker is not often a great YouTuber or great on video or understanding live video. But here's what I think of when I think of virtual events and reinventing virtual events. And the events that I'm working with, this is a lot of what we're working into the content strategy as well as the strategy for the overall event is, if you want interaction, if interaction is your goal, which means you want your audience's full attention, here's what you have to do. The first thing you have to do is you have to manage expectations. What I mean by that is you need to make sure the audience knows that they're 50% responsible for the success of this event and the presenter is 50% successful of this event. Because I don't care how amazing interactive a presentation is set up to be, if the audience isn't planning on it being on their laptop, maybe they're just listening to it in podcast mode on their phone, I don't care how great of an interaction presentation, it's not going to matter. So you have to manage expectations. And the second part there is you have to educate your audience on, hey, why is it interactive? What is the level of participation? Are you going to ask them to be on video? Do they need to be on their desktop so they can open a second tab? Does it work on a mobile device, right? Like, how am I going to make those connections? The other thing about this is, if you're doing like a multi-hour event, most of the events that I'm hosting or emceeing now are 3 to 4 hours, some of them are 8 hours. Here's the thing. You don't want an interactive event that entire time. You want presentations that are educational and entertaining and engaged, and even that participatory element. But here's what I think we also do wrong, is that we just say, hey, everyone stay in Zoom or everyone stay in Cisco WebEx throughout this entire day. But there's only really one session that's going to take advantage of that, right? We're just going to play the replays. What we need to do is we need to be very strategic with when we send someone to an interactive hub so that they understand it is a different type of consumption, right? Because one of the biggest missing pieces with virtual events is co-consumption of content. I have a whole other video all on co-consumption of content, but that's a big thing that's missing. We don't have anybody to share our content consumption with, which is definitely something that we have to keep in mind. But with that being said, I can maintain the audience's attention without having it to be fully interactive. And one of the ways that I do that, and here's a real practical one, is I actually do a choose your own adventure, or I call it choose your own experience, where about 5 minutes into my keynote, I put up 3 different pictures on the screen, just like this, and I'm using the same tool that I'm using to record this on right now, Ecamm Live, and I'll say, okay, I want you guys to vote on 1, 2, or 3 for the story I'm gonna tell at the end of this presentation. And then I'll say, while you guys are voting, I'm going to throw this to a quick little transition video, which would probably be a 360 video because I'm using a lot of 360 videos with my 360 GoPro. And what that does is it gives people all this new attention, right? Like, oh my goodness, this is what's going on. The next thing I do, right after I ask that participation, I set the expectations myself as a speaker. Hey, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be very educational. I want you guys to be taking notes. You don't have to worry about the chat. I will see the chat, so if you guys are asking questions, don't worry about it. And you can really manufacture that. Another secret of mine, and this is probably one of the ones maybe I shouldn't give away, and my speaker agent might be a little upset if I give this away, but I'm going to do it anyhow. One of the other things that I love to do is that you want to make sure that you let the audience know that, hey, because here's the thing, we always say, we want questions and answers. Please bring all your questions, use the Q&A box, use the chat box for chatting and Q&A for Q&A, right? Like we've all done that, right? But here's the thing, there's a level of what we've been used to in webinars where we've all done it, right? We've submitted 3 questions ourselves, they tell us they have 45 questions and they have time for 2. One of the other things that I do is very early on, I say, here's what I'm gonna do for everybody. I want you guys to use that question box, ask me every question under the sun, and here's my promise. If I can't answer all of your questions during this presentation or during my allotted time, I'm gonna do a personalized video answering every single one of these questions, and I'll have it up on my Instagram account or have it on my Twitter, or even yet, I'm going to send it to the event host so that they can send it out to you. So therefore, you have no worries about your question not being answered. Bring me on your questions, right? This is a big piece, and I can't harp on it enough. And funny enough, if you want an interactive presentation, the entire piece, the back and forth is extremely important. But if you want an engage, get the audience's attention, you also have to figure out that back and forth. So here's the language that I like to use. I believe all virtual events must be participatory content. If it's just broadcasting, if you're just doing a live stream and there's no interaction, that's called YouTube or a TED Talk or TV. But if it's going to be, hey, these are pre-recorded sessions, but we're going to have the speaker in the chat, and then after their session, we're going to have them jump on Q&A. Because remember, I like that. Check out that other video of mine where I talk about the 3 types of video content that every virtual event must have. But here's the thing. I believe that every virtual event must focus on participatory style content and conversations, not interactivity. Because participatory means, hey, when I see you guys in the chat, make sure, I'll see your chats, bring them on here, right? Some speakers are really good at seeing the chat. Others aren't. For the event that I'm speaking at tomorrow, I have my community manager, and she's going to be editing and adding the questions to a Google Doc that I'll have on my screen right here behind the camera. And so as I'm presenting, she'll bring up those questions. She'll highlight ones that I need to answer. She'll delete them if I end up answering it during my talk. But having that element is extremely important, and making sure the audience knows what to expect. I firmly believe the number one failure, there's two number one failures. The two failures that I believe virtual events are struggling with right now. The first one is they don't invest in a host or an MC. I believe a host and an MC as the face of a virtual event is more valuable and more important than any speaker or any event platform technology. I have a whole video on that, breaking out all those resources. But the other piece of this that I don't believe we are focusing enough on is the education of our audience. We must educate them before the event, the day of the event, letting them know, hey, for the first 3 hours of the event, we're just going to be broadcasting some of our presentations, so feel free to listen to it on your phone. But around 1 p.m., we're going to have Brian Fanzo come on here, and he's going to have an interactive choose-your-own-experience presentation where we're going to want to bring some people on video. We're going to want you guys answering in the polls, because you're going to be able to participate in the actual event. You're going to be able to be part of Brian's presentation. You're going to actually shape how my presentation is delivered. Because I believe if it is live, then it should be shaped by the audience. If you are not allowing the audience to shape a live presentation, the question I ask you is, why is it live? And I will leave you with this. I believe another shortcoming here that we have to think about is, why does someone feel like they want to attend a live presentation? What's the value for that? If I can just get the download later, we all are busy, right? And we've all done it, right? Like we go like, oh, I'll just download it later. We download it, we never watch it again, and it goes into that saved folder. What I believe how this should all work is that if you are educating your audience and you are understanding the differences between interactive and maintaining the audience's attention, right? Having that episodic feel, the preview and the teasers with a great host and MC, then what I believe this all comes down to is that the things that will give the audience a reason to attend live is because they will be able to shape the content and the conversation of the virtual event, because it's participatory content. My name is Brian Fanzo. Hope you guys enjoyed this little talk here. I try to cover virtual events. I'm going to have a lot more content here up on my channel, all my resources on my website. So make sure you guys subscribe, hit that bell wherever you're at. I appreciate you guys. I firmly believe virtual events are here to stay, and I'm excited about the future of virtual events, well, as long as we make them participatory. Cheers, my friends.